In Chapter 1, Dr. Elma York, a pilot astronaut stationed at Artemis Base on the Moon, prepares to return to Earth as the Friendship probe attempts the first Mars landing. The International Aerospace Coalition faces funding cuts that threaten the future Mars mission. Elma and her colleagues gather in the lunar colony's central dome to watch the broadcast from Mission Control, where her husband Nathaniel helps oversee the landing. After tense moments of silence, confirmation arrives. The probe has successfully landed, marking humanity's first broadcast from another planet. Soon after, Elma departs for the Luneta orbital station and begins her journey home alongside fellow astronaut Grissom. Docking at the station, she transfers to an Earthbound ship, reuniting with her friend Helen Carmouche. As they descend toward Earth, mechanical trouble disrupts their re-entry, ending the chapter with the ship in a dangerous, uncontrolled spin. In Chapter 2, Elma York regains consciousness after her ship, Cygnus 14, lands 260 miles off course following a malfunction during re-entry. The cabin reeks of vomit and fear, but everyone has survived. As recovery teams approach, 6 armed Earth First protesters storm the capsule, holding Elma, Helen, and the other astronauts hostage. Believing the astronauts have brought space germs, and that the space program wastes resources while people on Earth suffer, the group demands to speak with the President, the UN, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Elma, recognizing one captor as a fan, tries to reason with him while Helen secretly communicates a plan in Morse code. Faking illness, Helen pretends to die from space germs, convincing the hijackers to release several sick passengers. As Elma negotiates with the protesters, she collapses from exhaustion, waking later to find herself still trapped aboard the hijacked spacecraft. In Chapter 3, after 10 hours of captivity, the Earth First protesters release 31 hostages from Cygnus 14, keeping only Dr. Elma York as leverage. Exhausted and ill from gravity readjustment, Elma remains their spokesperson, relaying futile demands for President Denley, the UN, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. As tensions rise, she realizes the hijackers had acted impulsively after spotting the off-course landing. When one demands food, gunfire suddenly erupts outside. The UN rescue team storms the ship. Elma hides in the restroom as the firefight ends, leaving Roy and several captors dead or wounded. Freed at last, she undergoes medical checks and a long-awaited shower, reuniting emotionally with her husband, Nathaniel. A week later, during a pilot meeting, Elma learns the IAC wants her to be the public face of the program and to join the upcoming first Mars expedition, reigniting her place in humanity's journey to the stars. In Chapter 4, Elma York is offered a position on the first Mars expedition as both a crew member and the public face of the International Aerospace Coalition. Concerned about funding cuts and growing political pressure, Director Clemens believes her visibility can save the space program. Elma confides in her husband, Nathaniel, who helps her weigh the personal costs, 3 years away from Earth, delaying their plans for children and possible infertility due to radiation exposure. Torn between love, ambition, and duty, Elma wrestles with her decision until an encounter with a young orphan, Dorothy, whose family died in a rocket accident, reminds her why exploration matters. Realizing the future depends on sacrifice and progress, Elma decides to accept the mission to Mars. She informs Clemens of her choice, but leaves without telling Nathaniel, symbolizing her commitment to humanity's future even at the expense of her own. In Chapter 5, Elma tells Nathaniel she has accepted the Mars mission, and though heartbroken, he supports her choice, not wanting her to sacrifice her dreams. Soon after, she begins navigation training at Chicago's Adler Planetarium, joining the Nina crew. However, Elma learns her inclusion came at a cost. Helen Carmouche, her friend and fellow navigator, was removed from the mission to make room for her. Humiliated and furious at Director Clemens' deceit, Elma decides to resign so Helen can return. During a tense flight back with Stetson Parker, she confirms her suspicion that Clemens replaced Helen for publicity reasons. When Elma confronts him, Clemens admits it was a political move to secure funding by showcasing America's Lady Astronaut. Despite believing it's unethical, Elma faces an impossible choice: withdraw and jeopardize the Mars program or stay to protect it, ultimately resolving to speak with Helen before making her final decision. In Chapter 6, Elma confronts Clemens about Helen's removal from the Mars mission, insisting on speaking with her before making a final decision. When Elma calls, Helen confirms she agreed to the reassignment only because refusing would have ended her career. Though angry and hurt, Helen tells Elma not to withdraw, knowing the program's survival depends on her public image. Accepting the harsh reality, Elma recommits to the mission. Soon, she is swept into a media blitz to restore support for the space program, appearing with Stetson Parker on The Tonight Show. There, she forces herself to smile and promote unity, even as Parker and the host subtly diminish Helen's contributions. Later, visiting her brother Herschel and nephew Tommy, Elma reflects on the sacrifices she's making, the family milestones she'll miss, and the children she'll never have, realizing that space exploration's cost extends far beyond the stars. In Chapter 7, Elma struggles to balance Mars mission training with constant publicity demands. During geology class, tension flares when fellow astronaut Florence accuses her of benefiting from privilege and displacing others like Helen. Though hurt, Elma continues playing the IAC's media figure, posing for staged photos with Nathaniel for public relations. Later, she trains in the neutral buoyancy lab, practicing spacewalk repairs alongside teammates Rafael Avellino and Leonard Flannery. Despite the physical strain, she finds relief in focusing on real astronaut work rather than appearances. Midway through training, Director Clemens abruptly halts the exercise and orders Leonard removed from the pool. Confused, Elma and Rafael continue their tasks until the session ends. When she surfaces, her technician reveals that the FBI is waiting to question them. The sudden interruption hints at a serious new development tied to the Earth First hijacking months earlier, reigniting buried tensions. In Chapter 8, Elma is interrogated by FBI agents Boone and Whitaker, who question her about Leonard Flannery's connection to the Earth First hijackers. They imply Leonard may have sympathized with the attackers, twisting his attempt to calm them into possible collaboration. Elma defends him, insisting he was only trying to protect her and had no role in the rocket crash. The agents press for information on other crew members, revealing the investigation may be politically motivated as Congress debates IAC funding. Weeks later, training resumes, but the tension lingers. During a critical navigation simulation, Elma struggles to identify a star and nearly miscalculates their trajectory before Florence helps her recover, underscoring her lingering insecurity. That night, Elma returns home to Nathaniel, who finally admits his fear that she might die on Mars. They reconcile emotionally, agreeing to send hidden coded messages so he'll know she's safe. In Chapter 9, Elma attends a bridge night at Helen's house, joined by Florence and Ida, only to discover the gathering is a cover for discussing the FBI investigation. Helen reveals that Leonard Flannery is suspected of collaborating with the hijackers, and that Governor Worgan fears Congress will use the accusation to remove Leonard and Florence from the Mars mission due to their NAACP membership. The women realize racism and politics threaten to derail the mission, so they strategize ways to protect their teammates and in public perception. Later that night, Elma confronts Nathaniel for not telling her about the investigation, and they argue before reconciling. Together, they devise a solution: to move the entire Mars team to the Luneta space station outside U.S. jurisdiction until launch. Despite the risks, Nathaniel agrees to help make the transfer possible, standing by Elma as the mission's political stakes escalate. In Chapter 10, Elma and the Mars expedition crew relocate to the Luneta space station to complete training in real zero gravity. Working alongside the International Pinta team, Elma practices celestial navigation with her sextant, proving her precision while facing subtle hostility from the South African astronaut Vanderbilt de Beer. During an exercise, de Beer insults Florence Gray in Afrikaans, prompting Commander Stetson Parker to fluently reprimand him, revealing his command of multiple languages. Their session is interrupted by a press visit arranged for publicity. Elma and Parker showcase their training for reporters, emphasizing teamwork and scientific rigor while carefully managing the media narrative. However, one South African journalist pointedly questions Leonard Flannery's integrity, hinting he caused the Cygnus 14 crash. Elma publicly defends Leonard, but realizes de Beer is the likely source of the false rumors, vowing to confront him and protect the mission's integrity. In Chapter 11, Elma suspects Vanderbilt de Beer is leaking false information about Leonard Flannery to the press and FBI. She first speaks privately with Florence Gray and Leonard in the lab, confirming that Leonard did perform an EVA but nowhere near the crash rocket, proving the accusations baseless. Both warn Elma not to report the issue to Mission Control, fearing it would cost them their positions due to racial bias. Elma offers to use her public lady astronaut influence to expose de Beer, but they insist it would backfire. Florence reveals their crew is segregated, their separate but equal ship being a result of political compromise. Later, Elma speaks to her husband Nathaniel via satellite call from Luneta, updating him vaguely on training while struggling to hide her frustrations. Their conversation turns tender as they discuss family and future plans, underscoring the emotional cost of their separation and the mission's high stakes. In Chapter 12, tensions erupt aboard Luneta after a South African newspaper claims black astronauts from the NAACP conspired to crash Cygnus 14. During a heated staff meeting, Parker reprimands De Beer for his possible role in spreading the story and bans unsupervised contact with reporters. De Beer denies involvement, but accuses Leonard Flannery of colluding with the hijackers, further dividing the crew. Parker assigns inventory duties, pointedly giving Elma and Florence the kitchen list, and announces that Mission Control will soon arrive for final inspections, led by Nathaniel York. Elma is both mortified and overjoyed to learn her husband will visit. When the inspection team arrives, Nathaniel and Elma share a brief public reunion for the cameras before stealing private time together in a Busy Bee shuttle. There, Nathaniel admits he returned partly to monitor the De Beer situation, and the couple reaffirm their love despite the risks and growing political turmoil surrounding the mission. In Chapter 13, the Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria launch from Earth orbit, beginning humanity's first journey to Mars. As millions watch worldwide, Elma York performs her duties as navigator aboard the Nina, calculating the ship's trajectory with precision while communicating with Mission Control in Kansas. During flight, the S-4B booster stage that propelled them begins venting frozen propellant dangerously close to their ship, obscuring the star field Elma relies on for navigation. She quickly recalculates course corrections, guiding Commander Stetson Parker through a controlled burn to maneuver the Nina safely away. Despite interference from Mission Control, Elma's calculations prove flawless, re-establishing clear sightlines for navigation. The Nina resumes course at 36,000 miles per hour, successfully breaking free of Earth's orbit. As Elma gazes back at the distant blue planet, her husband somewhere beneath the clouds, she feels both the enormity of their mission and the weight of leaving home behind forever. In Chapter 14, 2 weeks into the Mars expedition, the Nina experiences its first equipment failure when the zero-gravity toilet malfunctions, releasing floating globes of urine throughout the cabin. Elma reluctantly takes responsibility for cleaning the mess and troubleshooting the system to prevent contamination. Discovering the vacuum fan isn't running, she realizes the airflow is blocked and begins repairs. Raphael, the ship's engineer, arrives to assist her, and together they extract the clog, revealing a condom lodged in the suction pump. The discovery suggests Commander Parker's ongoing misconduct, recalling past incidents where he exploited female astronauts. Elma asks Raphael to discreetly confront Parker while she plans to check on her crewmates Florence and Camila to ensure their safety. The incident exposes underlying issues of professionalism, gender dynamics, and power aboard the mission, turning a technical problem into a reminder of human frailty even among the stars. In Chapter 15, Elma and Camila cook together aboard the Nina, using the quiet time to discuss Parker's past misconduct and the condom found in the toilet. Elma explains Parker's history of exploiting women during the war and reveals she once testified against him, which explains his lingering hostility. Camila warns that the issue wasn't disclosed in crew medical reviews, suggesting possible negligence by the IAC, and agrees to quietly watch for trouble. Their conversation shifts to camaraderie as they share laughter and cultural differences during dinner. The meal brings rare levity among the crew, with everyone trading humorous insults in multiple languages, including a Yiddish curse Elma teaches Parker. The light-hearted mood is abruptly shattered when Mission Control breaks in over the intercom, reporting a fire aboard the Pinta. Instantly, the crew springs into action, clearing the table and preparing for an emergency response. In Chapter 16, a fire breaks out aboard the Pinta, prompting an emergency response from the Nina's crew. Elma and Parker rush to the command module, while the rest secure their stations. The Pinta's commander, Penkovsky, reports that the blaze is contained after sealing bulkheads and purging oxygen. Mission Control confirms all is safe, revealing the fire was caused by lint in the laundry system. As tension eases, Parker makes a sexist joke about women handling laundry, sparking an argument with Elma that escalates into personal insults. When she challenges him about hiding his wife, Parker reveals that his wife Miriam lives in an iron lung due to polio, leaving Elma remorseful. Later, she writes a coded teletype letter to Nathaniel reflecting on the confrontation and their mission's progress. Parker avoids her afterward, and when Elma tries to apologize, he coldly rebuffs her, widening the rift between them. In Chapter 17, Elma and Florence are assigned laundry duty after Parker's sexist redistribution of tasks. As they fold clothes, the women bond over shared frustrations and personal histories before Parker calls Florence to communications. Later, at dinner, Elma learns that the Pinta crew has suffered a severe E. coli outbreak, likely caused by contaminated rice left out after their earlier fire. Mission Control forbids the Nina from intervening, citing infection risks. To lift morale, Terrazas organizes a Flash Gordon radio drama to entertain the sick crew, with Elma and the others performing for the Pinta. Their laughter fades when a transmission from Mission Control reports that Ruby Donaldson, the Pinta's medic, has died from complications of the infection. Camila accuses the IAC of negligence, arguing their inaction caused Ruby's death. Defying orders, Parker agrees to take Elma and Camila on a dangerous, unauthorized mission of mercy to help the stricken crew. In Chapter 18, Elma and Camila pilot the Busy Bee to the Pinta in defiance of Mission Control's orders, aiming to aid the sick crew after Ruby Donaldson's death. Docking carefully, they enter the contaminated ship wearing Mars pressure suits and find it filled with floating waste and the stench of infection. Elma spends hours cleaning the spindle, while Camila tends to the surviving astronauts in the gym, who are weak but alive. When they find Dabir, he resists Camila's help, revealing his racism even in his delirium. Together, Elma and Camila restrain him using gym weights, forcing him to accept medical treatment. Despite their disgust and exhaustion, they manage to administer fluids and begin stabilizing the crew. The mission underscores both women's resolve and professionalism, showing their compassion amid chaos and further cementing Elma's evolution from pilot to leader capable of decisive, humane action in crisis. In Chapter 19, Elma and Camila prepare Ruby Donaldson's body for disposal in space, while Benkowski insists on accompanying them despite his weakness. He explains that Parker tried to remove Dabir from the mission for racism, but funding from South Africa kept him on the crew. At the Pinta's forward airlock, Camila and Elma perform a makeshift memorial for Ruby. They recall her humor, courage, and kindness before proceeding with the IAC's grim bag protocol, exposing Ruby's body to vacuum until it freezes, then shaking the remains into dust for return to Earth. Elma silently recites the mourner's Kaddish as they complete the procedure, emotionally shaken by the brutality of the act but determined to honor Ruby's service. When they return to the Nina, Elma can still feel the vibrations of the bag in her hands, the memory of Ruby's death lingering with her long after the mission resumes. In Chapter 20, Elma struggles with trauma and guilt after performing Ruby Donaldson's body disposal, unable to sleep without medication. Seeking comfort, she writes to Nathaniel using their coded teletype system, describing the emotional toll of using the bag to pulverize Ruby's remains. Nathaniel's initial reply focuses on technical success, frustrating Elma, who explains that while the device worked mechanically, its psychological impact was horrific. She could see and feel Ruby's body breaking apart. After their tense exchange, Nathaniel realizes his mistake, apologizes, and promises to present her report to the IAC to ensure the bag is replaced. Elma finds comfort in his empathy and in their renewed connection despite the vast distance between them. Talking with Florence afterward, she recognizes how isolated she's been from her crewmates and begins to accept her emotional vulnerability. The chapter ends with Nathaniel's plea, "Please don't die in space." In Chapter 21, tensions aboard the Nina erupt after a newspaper reveals Elma's history with anxiety medication. The article, tied to the Cygnus 6 trial, publicly exposes her Milltown use, humiliating her before the crew. Florence and Leonard confront her, questioning her fitness and privilege. The discussion turns bitter as Florence accuses Mission Control of replacing the Taiwanese astronaut Helen with Elma for publicity, while Leonard points out the racial bias that keeps him and Florence relegated to menial duties. Overwhelmed, Elma retreats, vomiting from stress before writing a coded message to Nathaniel admitting what happened. She hides her distress in a formal letter, but privately confides that morale is deteriorating. Later, Elma and Leonard reconcile in the garden module, both apologizing. Leonard accepts her friendship, but asks her never to explain his experience again. The scene closes with Elma reflecting on her isolation amid the fragile harmony of the crew. In Chapter 22, a few weeks after her argument with Leonard and Florence, Elma notices that the duty roster still unfairly assigns cleaning and kitchen work mostly to them. During morning prep, she attempts to apologize to Parker for her past remarks about his late wife, but their conversation spirals into another clash over his sexist jokes and her sensitivity to them. When the rest of the crew arrives for the meeting, Florence brings news that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. has won the Nobel Peace Prize and delivers Elma a letter from Nathaniel describing their new apartment with a garden view. The mood briefly lightens as Parker jokes about sciencing everyone's tasks, turning chores into humor. Yet, the imbalance remains clear. Leonard's scientific skills are wasted on menial duties. When Terrazas offers to swap jobs with Leonard, Parker refuses, citing Mission Control's orders and the risks to Leonard's reputation, reigniting quiet frustration aboard the ship. In Chapter 23, the Nina reaches the halfway point to Mars, and Elma assists Parker with the mid-course correction burn, confirming navigation data with the Pinta and Mission Control. The burn proceeds perfectly, and the crew celebrates seeing Earth as a tiny blue speck behind them. Later, while tending the garden module with Camila, Elma enjoys a rare moment of peace before Florence storms in. Furious. She has decoded one of Elma's coded teletype letters to Nathaniel and accuses her of spying for Mission Control. The letter reveals Elma's private comments about crew tensions and the manipulated, overly positive news the crew receives from Earth. Florence and Camila confront Elma, who insists the messages were personal and meant only for her husband. But as Florence accuses her of betraying their trust, Elma realizes Nathaniel's protective interference may have led to the censorship, and that her own words have made everything worse. In Chapter 24, Elma learns that all her future messages must be uncoded after Mission Control restricts private communications, likely due to the fallout from Florence decoding her last letter. Nathaniel writes a cautious public letter about home life, hinting that her brother Herschel's unexpected visit hides something serious. Furious over the censorship, Elma reluctantly dictates a monitored reply to Parker, realizing he's the only one she can trust for some privacy. Their tense exchange softens when Parker acknowledges the unfair rules, later assigning her kitchen duty so she can host a Passover Seder, a gesture of unexpected respect. Weeks later, during a flight to the Pinta with Camila, Elma reluctantly discusses her mental health before noticing a white plume venting from the Nina. She quickly identifies it as an ammonia leak from the coolant system, signaling a dangerous new crisis for the mission. In Chapter 25, the Nina's crew confronts an ammonia leak threatening the ship's cooling system. Working as a coordinated team, Elma, Parker, Raphael, and Terrazas plan an emergency EVA to locate and repair the rupture. Mission Control orders Raphael and Terrazas to perform the spacewalk, while Elma calculates contingency trajectories in case they must abandon ship. During preparations, Camila informs Elma that Nathaniel has been hospitalized for an ulcer surgery, a secret Parker quietly helped her uncover. As the EVA progresses, Raphael and Terrazas locate the leak and attempt to cut a snagged ammonia line to free Terrazas' suit. Despite careful coordination between the Nina and Mission Control, the operation goes wrong. Ammonia begins venting again, and a cloud of frozen red droplets reveals that someone, likely Terrazas, has been injured. The chapter ends in crisis as blood drifts through space outside the viewport. In Chapter 26, Esteban Terrazas is killed during the EVA after a faulty gauge leads the crew to believe an ammonia line is depressurized. When Raphael cuts it, the line lashes back, breaching Terrazas' suit and exposing him to the vacuum of space. Raphael is rescued, but blames himself for the accident. Parker assumes responsibility before the crew, admitting fault lies with Mission Control and his command decisions. Grieving deeply, the Nina's crew rejects Mission Control's directive to use the bag for disposal, and instead holds a full funeral service. Together, they debate burial options and choose to release Terrazas' body into space, wrapped in a shroud and adorned with handmade flowers. During the ceremony, Raphael delivers a eulogy through tears, and the crew embraces in shared sorrow. As they watch Terrazas drift away, his body collides with the ship's antenna, a haunting final image of loss amid the silence of space. In Chapter 27, following the Nina's damage, both crews relocate to the Pinta, where Parker leads repairs on the cooling system and antenna. Tensions rise in the overcrowded ship as Parker assigns Elma as his co-pilot, while Raphael, still grieving Terrazas, is tasked with reviewing Mission Control's EVA plan. Parker emphasizes unity, asserting his command authority after admitting past mistakes. Later, Elma writes to Nathaniel about Nathaniel's recovery and the strain of life aboard the combined ship. As she bakes to lift morale, conflict erupts when Raphael discovers a racist sign De Beer placed on the restroom. A violent fight breaks out until Elma intervenes, flinging pie filling to separate them. Parker restores order, forcing apologies, and keeping the incident from mission control to avoid public scandal. The following day, as the crew resumes duties, Elma approaches Parker in the spindle, only to learn that they have completely lost contact with Earth. In Chapter 28, communication with Earth remains silent after 2 days, and Parker consults Elma about sending Raphael on an EVA to repair the Nina's systems. She suggests a 3-person team, so Parker assigns her and Leonard to join. During the spacewalk, the trio works to replace the damaged antenna, coordinating carefully as Parker monitors from the ship. Their teamwork gradually eases the tension, with small moments of humor and shared language bridging differences. Raphael remains professional but distant, haunted by Terrazas' death. After completing the repairs, the crew gathers aboard the Nina as Florence powers up the restored comm system. The test signal confirms the Nina's radio is functioning perfectly, proving the problem isn't with their ships but with Earth itself. As the crew faces the grim silence, Elma realizes that after a full week without contact, something catastrophic may have happened back home, leaving them completely isolated in deep space. In Chapter 29, 2 weeks after losing contact with Earth, Parker finalizes plans to split the crews back between the Nina and the Pinta. During breakfast, he surprises Elma by permanently assigning her as his co-pilot, citing her discipline and skill despite their clashes. Raphael is quietly sidelined after showing signs of emotional instability, deepening tensions with De Beer, who resents Elma for taking his planned Mars landing position. The crew's meeting confirms the new structure, with Parker and Elma returning to the Nina while others cross-train for emergencies. As the silence from Earth stretches past 3 weeks, the strain grows heavier. Elma visits Florence, stationed alone in the commode, bringing pie and comfort before heading to the bridge. There, Parker and Elma execute a precision course correction burn toward Mars. As the engines ignite and gravity presses them forward, Elma realizes the Nina's journey is now fully its own, alone in the void. In Chapter 30, after 53 days of silence, the Nina finally reestablishes contact with Earth. Florence wakes Parker and Elma when mission control begins transmitting. The crew learns that the communication blackout was caused by Earth First extremists who sabotaged the satellites and destroyed Kansas's power grid. As Parker reads through the personal messages, his demeanor changes. He discovers that his wife, dependent on an iron lung, likely died when the power failed. Elma follows him to the Busy Bee, where she finds him alone and devastated. For the first time, Parker's stoic command mask collapses, and he breaks down in grief. Elma silently comforts him as he weeps, and he asks her to keep his loss private. Before she leaves, Parker asks her to help him recite the mourner's Kaddish for his wife that night, a fragile truce forming between commander and co-pilot in the wake of personal tragedy. In Chapter 31, communications with Earth are fully restored after the IAC revives 2 damaged satellites. Elma leads the morning briefing in Parker's absence, learning from Mission Control that Earth First attacks crippled the Kansas spaceport and power grid, leaving Mission Control able to talk to, but not see, the Mars ships. Parker announces that future navigation will rely entirely on the crew's calculations. He then allows a rare vote, whether to land on Mars or slingshot home. Every crew member chooses to continue with the landing. Parker later confirms that Raphael and Leonard will pilot the lander, while Elma remains on the Nina as navigator. That night, Parker privately thanks Elma and finally breaks down again while mourning his wife. She comforts him and teaches him to recite the Kaddish. Weeks later, Elma's calculations prove perfect as Parker pilots the Nina into a stable orbit, marking humanity's first successful arrival at Mars. In Chapter 32, the world rejoices as public support for the Mars landing rises. Aboard the Nina, Elma works with Raphael and Leonard to finalize descent data while Raphael studies the lander controls. When she suggests naming the craft, Raphael honors his fallen crewmate by calling it Terrazas. During the descent, Elma and Parker monitor telemetry from orbit while the Terrazas crew, Raphael, Leonard, Florence, and Cam, perform a flawless landing. Elma tracks their numbers and guides the descent, offering final confirmations until Raphael's calm voice announces, "Contact light." The first human landing on Mars is complete, and the new base is christened Bradbury Base. The crews of both ships erupt in celebration as Parker praises Elma's precision work. Though she longs to stand on the surface herself, Elma feels renewed purpose, vowing that this will only be the beginning of humanity's expansion, and of her own mission as the Lady Astronaut of Mars. Epilogue. Years after the first landing, Dr. Leonard Flannery addresses the United Nations as the leader of the second Mars expedition, calling for unity in building a peaceful colony. His co-pilot, Dr. Elma York, the Lady Astronaut, stands beside him, now a symbol of humanity's perseverance. The scene shifts to Elma piloting the Esther during her own descent to Mars, this time as part of the colony mission with Nathaniel aboard. Guided by Helen and Leonard, Elma executes a flawless landing near Bradbury Base, the first human settlement on Mars. After sealing down systems, she steps onto the Martian surface, officially becoming the Lady Astronaut of Mars. Together, the crew unloads supplies and begins restoring the base for new arrivals. As night falls, Elma and Nathaniel hold hands beneath the stars, the first couple to stand together on another planet, marveling at humanity's new beginning among the heavens.